The Calgary Flames have a serious concern, and it's one the franchise has been extremely familiar with ever since the turn of the century. The Flames are once again caught in hockey purgatory, where they are in a playoff race for one of the lower seeds, but also find themselves staring at not only being outside of the top 10 in the NHL Entry Draft, but ultimately losing their own first-round pick as a result. Craig Conroy has a lot on his plate, so what on earth should he do? We're going to get into all that and more in this video, but first I want to welcome you to Flames Digest. I'm Mark Griffith. If you're new around here and you love the Flames, make sure you subscribe so you can stay up to date on all the latest news, updates, reports, and rumors revolving around your Calgary Flames. We would love to welcome you to the Flames Digest family, and we have a serious concern to talk to, a major concern, and honestly, this genuinely is very, very serious because the Calgary Flames, for as long as so many of us can remember, have been so darn mid, and it's just unacceptable. You know, obviously the Flames have had some good seasons in there. You think of 2019, where they finished top of the Western Conference, actually, and then lost in the first round. Or even 2022, you know, top of the Pacific Division, ended up losing out in round 2 kind of thing. Other than those little outliers there, the Flames have never ever been bad enough to, you know, get a top 3 pick before, and haven't quite been good enough to be one of the premier teams of the league since 1990, maybe the early 90s, we can say, something like that. So it has been a long time that the Flames have been caught in this hockey purgatory, and yet again this year it looks like it will be the same. It kind of looked like the Flames were going to be, you know, eyeing, you know, a top 3 pick in this year's draft. I know we'd rather have a top 3 pick in next year's draft anyway, but the Flames look really good, and now they aren't looking so good and are on the outside looking into the playoffs, and the last thing they want to do is miss out on the playoffs and not get a top 10 pick, because then we lose our first round pick to Montreal, which is just no bueno at all. That is absolutely unacceptable. The Flames cannot do that. It genuinely is a very, very serious concern. If the Flames don't turn it on and miss out on the playoffs by just a little bit, this whole season was an absolute waste. We do have a little article to look at that kind of goes over this. So pissed Flames limp into break with trade deadline decisions to be made. It comes from Steve McFarland of the Hockey News. And it's true. The pissed is in, you know, quotation marks there, because that's how MacKenzie Weegar described the Flames after they somehow blew that game to Seattle. You know, I didn't make a video on it yesterday because I was also a little bit pissed that they ended up losing that game. But things are trending down for the Flames with the NHL's Four Nations face-off break upon us. So the break has started. Just Rasmus Andersson is the one who has traveled over to Montreal in order to get ready for Team Sweden. Everyone else, hopefully, is, you know, really recovering, rejuvenating their bodies, resting their bodies, and will come back hopefully better than ever when they do come back. But there are some decisions to be made, as it says here. Entering a 2-week break for the Four Nations face-off, the Flames are likely to spend a good chunk of it reflecting on their disastrous entry into it. 3 straight losses, each indicative of the many issues the Flames have illustrated this season. Beyond these disappointing lopsided losses to the Leafs, Capitals, and the pre-pause finale against the Kraken on Saturday, the Flames have gone 2-5-1 since a 3-game winning streak that ended in late January. And it's true, the Flames have been terrible lately. They've looked like, you know, Patrick Mahomes in the first half last night of the Super Bowl. They've been that bad. And it really does suck, because the Flames they controlled their own destiny, really, and they still do, of course, but they were easily comfortable in a playoff spot. They had games in hand on Vancouver. They were points above Vancouver, and now that is just not the case. No longer clinging to the final wildcard spot in the Western Conference, the Calgary Flames are now clinging to hope. Oh, great! We've heard that before. They dropped 3 points behind division rival Vancouver Canucks with an OT loss to the Kraken to limp into the break. And keep in mind, that was a game that should not have happened. Those kind of games haven't been happening where the Flames blow a lead. They earlier in the season were the comeback kids, and they've been really good at protecting their leads this season until that total mess up against Seattle. The Leafs loss had team leaders expressing their frustrations with each other at the bench. We saw that between Kadri and Raz, of course. The Capital loss exposed their tendency to get distracted and make poor disciplinary decisions in emotional times. Don't agree with that one as much. I mean, you can say that about what happened with Raz and Klapka a bit, but not really. The overtime decision on Hockey Night in Canada showed their inconsistency in closing. And again, maybe it's a current inconsistency because the Flames have been really good at closing out games this season, but that's true. That game against Seattle really showed that the Flames have some major flaws. It's unlikely that Conroy will be adding any helpers, and this is talking about going into the deadline. So, and if things to continue the way they have in the last couple of weeks, Conroy may consider moving out more players to gather more trade capital to either upgrade prospects or add more young roster players who fit the future vision. So this is where kind of the decision comes in, because this is a serious concern. The Flames cannot finish outside of the postseason and outside of the top 10 in the NHL draft. It would just, again, be a wasted season. So it's almost looking at the point where, depending on how the Flames do heading into March, I think the next week of games they play, obviously not over the next couple weeks, but the week after, will totally dictate what Conroy has to do in order to eliminate being in the mushy middle once again. As much as Flames ownership remains steadfast to the idea that the playoffs can add important experience to help a young team improve more quickly, not to mention the money that comes with it, the reality of their chances should be pretty obvious by the deadline. And it really is. That will dictate the Flames, kind of rest of the season. You think of last year, once they traded all of their players away, they were pretty bad and they didn't win many games, and it gave them a top 10 pick, and we got a very good prospect in it. Maybe that's what the Flames need to do again. I'm assuming and hoping that they will continue to push for the playoffs, but with Vancouver playing the way they're playing, the rest of the teams in the Pacific Division playing the way they're playing, and 4 really good teams in the Central, really the Flames are battling for that final wildcard spot, and it's just not looking good anymore. So clearly there's big decisions to be made, and this is a serious concern that I hope everyone in the organization takes seriously. Now, the other thing we'll talk about in this video is the Four Nations face-off, as has been mentioned a few times. And what's the big thing that us Flames fans care about? Obviously, Rasmus Andersson with Sweden and maybe MacKenzie Weegar with Canada. Oh, no. Flames defenseman officially not selected to Canada at the Four Nations face-off. So Team Canada named Drew Doughty to their lineup, opting not to select Flames defenseman MacKenzie Weegar, which is, as a Flames fan, good and bad. The bad reason, of course, we wanted to see more Flames at this tournament. It should be a very fun tournament, with apparently the best on best against each other. There's been so many players that have opted out and been injured, shall we say, but it is still a best on best, which is super, super fun. And it would have been great to see Weegar. Why is it good? So he has the chance to rest and really, hopefully get his body back in order. Not that he's been too banged up that we know of, but just able to rest and then come back and be as strong as possible. That's really good as well. Personally, I would have loved to see him in a Canada sweater, of course, but at the end of the day, I guess it's not a huge deal. If we take a quick look at his stats so far this season, I don't know, I'd say he's pretty deserving of that last spot ever since Pietrangelo decided to opt out. So in 55 games, he does have 31 points, not too bad at all, 6 goals, 25 assists. Obviously nowhere near the amount of goals he had last year, but still playing very well, a plus 11 as well, which is quite impressive. And why is that even more impressive? Well, if you look at some of the deeper stats, shall we say, if we get into each team's worst D pair, this comes from Slapshot on Instagram. So this is every NHL team's worst D pair by expected goals percentage this season. And the Flames' worst one has actually been Weegar and Miramanov. Now, the reason why I say Weegar's stats could be better, imagine if he had a better D partner. I don't want to rip on Daniil here, but let's just say that Weegar was playing with someone a little bit better at everything like he was last year. Who knows? He could be having a wonderful season. Obviously, Weegar played with Tanev quite a bit last year, which enabled him to pinch a little more and get way more points, but still, he is a really, really good player, and paired with the right guy, he can be good. So it's interesting to see that actually that's been our team's worst D pair this season, just in terms of expected goals percentage. I mean, we can probably all agree it's probably been Bean and Pahal, but either way, very interesting to note that. Now, if we get into the actual Four Nations face-off here is the schedule if you have any interest in it. So kicks off Wednesday this week with Canada against Sweden in Montreal. Then we get the States against Finland on Thursday. And then on Saturday, we get Finland and Sweden and US against Canada. Great rivalries all over on Saturday in Montreal. And then, of course, the tournament shifts over to Boston, where on Monday, Canada plays Finland, Sweden plays against the States, and then the championship game goes all the way on Thursday of next week. It'll be very interesting to see. I know most Flames fans will be cheering Raz on. Most will also be cheering Canada on. I mean, there's no right or wrong answer of who to cheer for. I'm honestly kind of just cheering for everyone. Hope it's an entertaining tournament. But either way, very much looking forward to watching Rasmus Andersson play in that Sweden yellow. Now let's wrap up this video with the comment of the day, as we love to do here on the channel. This one came from the most recent video, and it came from a username with a bunch of letters, RYMKYM. They said people won't vote for Wolf for the Calder Trophy because all they care about is how much points a forward or defenseman has. What they don't understand is that Wolf is literally keeping his team in a playoff hunt. If that doesn't amount to a Calder Trophy, then I don't know what does. And that's so true. I mean, Wolf probably, in all likelihood, will not win the Calder Trophy unless he can really manage to get the Flames in the playoffs easily and pick up some great stats along the way. Otherwise, Celebrini probably going to get it, even though look where he's carried the Sharks to. And then Lane Hutson as well. Great stats for a defenseman, of course, but again, it's not like he's a game changer the way Dustin Wolf totally is a game changer. We as Flames fans know that he has been the most valuable rookie this year, but will he win the Calder Trophy? Probably not. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please subscribe like we saw here today and have a wonderful rest of your day.